This is National Chess Master, all rats at chess.com. I'm here to analyze a game submitted by flannufmed. This is for my Member Best Games thread for those members of my rapidly growing video lessons group. Come be a part of it if you're not in it already. We are rocking the chess world. Okay, let's have a look and see what we get. This is truly a remarkable game. It's going to surprise you, I think, as it surprised me. Caro-Kann defense and a very solid opening for Black. Black's going to have to really butcher this to get a bad game. Black should generally equalize, and White has slim and none on winning chances if Black plays it correctly. Anyway, just kind of going through the routine. I don't know when book ends. That's your job to figure out where book ends. Okay, so Black has his bishop on d6 challenged. So the logical thing, there's a couple candidate moves that come to life here. One is to protect the bishop by knight b6, which has a tempo. It attacks this bishop and it invites White to trade on d6, which will develop his bishop. Develop his queen. You want to make exchanges to develop your pieces. So this is the first idea that comes to my mind. I think knight b6 is probably the best move here. That doesn't mean it's the only move. What Black does is plays queen c7. But let's just examine this move since I mentioned it. Knight b6. If, and there's a reason, if White takes this bishop, he doesn't have to, but if he does, and Black retakes this, yes, he could take this. I'm just trying to illustrate a point here. And now say the bishop comes back to b3. We have this position, okay? Now watch what happened in the game. Okay, Black plays queen c7, and then we have this move. Now we have reached this position, and it's White to play. Now Black had Black gone into my line, he would have had this knight over to b6. And this bishop would be back at b3, and it would be Black's move. So Black has lost a tempo here by moving his queen twice to take on d6. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that gives him a bad game. No, Black is equal here. It's just a little improvement that I would recommend. Okay, now c3. Okay, so White's just playing a solid formation, and Black could probably castle kingside and the game would be fine. He could also play for c5. That's thematic in the Caro-Kann, but Black instead decides he's going to castle queenside. And the ambition is to launch an attack against the White king. And surprise, surprise, it happens out of thin air. It's kind of a remarkable game. Okay, so now Black decides, well, he's not going to give me the open h file. I'll just take that bishop. That way I can start running my pawns. Okay, so the Black attack has started. It looks like Black's going to get h4 in, and if White plays h4 himself, he's weakened his kingside a little bit. So White reacts just defensively, knight f1, and Black gets the pawns rolling. And I think White kind of swims here for the next several moves. He's just kind of fumbling around. Oh, by the way, this is a turn-based game played at time control of one move in 3 days. And I really have a feeling Black took his time on this, and White might have taken his time, but when it really got tough, he didn't. If White didn't take his, or Black didn't take his time here, I'm even more impressed. This is just a remarkable game by Black. It just totally took me by surprise what happens here. So anyway, White's kind of fumbling around looking to make some exchanges. Maybe he wants to play queen f4 and get the queens off the board and settle for a draw if he can. I don't know how many draws were offered in the game. I have no idea. But anyways, Black says, "Oh, I'm going to stop you from putting your queen on f4, and I'm going to get my pawns rolling." So White redeploys his knight. Now Black swings his rook over. He's ready to advance his g pawn. So just like I say, out of thin air, the suddenly there's a pawn storm going, and White's supposed to be attacking on the queen side. He hasn't done anything over there yet. He's just been kind of eyeballing things on in front of his king. He's keeping his pieces over there. So White looks for an exchange to help out, but Black's happy because he gets to throw another pawn into the heart of matters. So the White Queen's kind of limited where it goes, and it doesn't matter where it goes. Black's going to be able to attack it again, and here it comes. And just look at this. The black pawns have just marched right up the board, unmolested. It's just remarkable how this thing materialized out of thin air, and it all started by castling queenside, and yet we still don't see any kind of a white attack. And guess what? We're not. Okay, White never attacks. And look at this. Look at those pawns. Black certainly shouldn't be thinking draw here. Black should be thinking about playing for a win, and but it's by no means won yet. Okay, Queen E4. And then let's just break open his king, see what happens. White wants no part of that. And now, for what it's worth, White's got some isolated pawns on the king side, and Black's got all the plays, so he just tries to open up the rest of that board. Let's get all the pawns off, and give me those open files for my rooks. I mean, just out of thin air, where did this attack come from? I mean, let's just go back to when Black castled queenside and signal this. You know, look at this position. It's essentially dead even. It's White to move. All he has to do is develop his queen, and it's basically dead even. Both sides would have castled, brought out their 3 minor pieces, and anyway. Just watch what happens. Black trades the bishop, starts his pawn. There's his first pawn. White doesn't want to play h4. There it goes. Okay. White looks for a queen exchange. Black throws another pawn. Black redeploys the knight. Bring the rook over. Okay. Now that helps the black attack along. Just like that. Boom. Here comes another pawn and another pawn. And the other pawn, just out of nowhere. It's amazing. And you haven't seen anything yet. Okay. Okay. You'll see what I mean when I'll refer back to that. Okay. Get the files busted open. And then here it comes. G3. Let's open them all up. Here we go. And White decides, I don't want it. I don't want all those open files. So he shoves his pawn up the board. Okay, so it's now time for Black to stop and regroup, and he's a little worried about this pawn here, so he stops and defends it. So maybe the Black attack is ground to a halt. I think with correct play, it has. I think the game logically will probably end in a draw if White plays this correctly. Okay, but White still doesn't even think about trying to attack the Black king. White brings his rook into play. Okay, let's get that knight in the game. Hey, let's trade queens and stop your attack cold. And Black says, okay. And he takes back with the rook. Now, Black has, he's got this wonderful pawn on g3, but there's nothing really to go along with it. And he's got this ugly backward pawn on the open file on e6. You know, if I'm playing Black here, I'm thinking, oh, this game's going to peter down to a draw here real quick, and I'm not even off for one if the opponent is near me in rating. Okay, and then here you have a very close rating span. You know, it's 14 points. Okay, so anyway, White just keeps maneuvering, and Black sticks that knight down there. It's the only piece attacking, but he's trying his best. Now there's pressure on e6 again. And here gets a check. And now a cute little tactic. Okay, knight f4. This guards the pawn on e6. And the point is, if knight takes knight, Black gets to play rook takes pawn check and wins this knight back. But I think if that happens, and it does happen, just watch this. This is just amazing. Okay, this does happen, and then White's going to win back the pawn on g3. But I think White won it the wrong way. Okay. Now, certainly, anyone in their sane mind looking at this position says it's going to be a draw. So, but Black's going to win, and he's going to win this. It's just incredible how he does this. White, I guess if anything's a mistake, this is the mistake. What White needed to do was simply play Rook G3. Okay, or I'm sorry, Rook E3. He can't. Rook F2 check, and he's going to win on B2. White needs to get a rook off the board. That's what White needs to do. Get a rook off the board. Okay, Rook F1. Maybe that'll do it. And then just surround this pawn and win it later. Okay, because King G3, it's just amazing what happens now. The first, once again you'd think this is a draw, but just watch what Black comes up with. I'm just so impressed, so fascinated with this. Okay, so Black uses his rooks to drive the king to the side of the board. Well, White says, no, you're not going to send me over to the side of the board. Let's trade some rooks. And Black says, nope, not trading rooks. Okay, now he guards his 7th rank. That seems to make sense. And now Black does the same thing, covers his 7th rank. And White's just kind of marking time here, pushes a rook. Black centralizes his king. White puts the pressure back on e5. Now that may be a mistake too, because suddenly the rooks are coming back into play. And now, look, mission accomplished. We got the king over on the side of the board. And now there's a mate. You have to interpose the rook, otherwise it's mate. It's only a legal move. And Black wisely, his rooks are better, doesn't trade his rooks. So White backs his king up. Now, what happens on the queen side is what happened on the king side. Black starts his pawns running. That white pawn star never came, so Black starts it. Just amazing. Now, I think the next move on White's part is kind of weakening. The game is probably still a draw with correct play. Okay, his next move is A3. Now that weakens the B3 square. You might not think that's important, but it does become very important. So there's nothing making you move that pawn. What are you afraid of? White. If Black plays A5 and B4 and takes on C3, so what? Okay, so what? And besides, with this rook on the 7th rank, on the 5th rank, he may not be able to play B4. So it's going to take some mistakes for White to lose this, and I think he's made a couple, and this might be the fatal error. We'll see as we get there. Okay, now White just marks time, and Black shoves this pawn. And look at that. Black's done his demonstration on the king side. He shoved his pawns over there. Now he's coming over here and shoving them on the queen side. Okay, so king comes back to h3, and Black improves his king position. White's just shuffling pieces. Now Black wants to trade rooks, and maybe what White needs to do is not allow it. Maybe play. No, you can't. I want to play rook e5, but then this check can be embarrassing. So anyway, White trades, and once again you'd think this is a draw, but maybe not. All of a sudden there's some tangible things in here for Black. The white king is cut off, and in most cases, if the rooks get traded, Black's king is active enough that Black will win the king and pawn ending, and that's going to come up here in once or twice. Excuse me, once or twice as we go on. So let's see how it goes. White plays rook e3, just biding time. Black moves his king up, backs his rook up, and now Black calculates that I can get rid of my weak pawn and dare you to trade rooks. So White wants no part of that. And Black just activates his king any further. So now you can see why a3 was a mistake, because that king's finding a home here. Okay, so he takes, and rook takes. And now the white king has some freedom here, but he's still far from the battle. So black goes and offers another rook trade, and white wisely declines. Let's see. Let's just show you, just for the sake of argument, what happens if he takes. Okay. How are we going to take? I probably could get away with taking with a pawn here. Okay, king up, push. Now, if white doesn't take, he's going to lose all his pawns. So I don't know. Maybe white survives this. Maybe I've done it wrong. Let's see. Yeah, that doesn't work. Okay. So let's see. Maybe I'm missing something. So he takes the rook. You take back with the king. Now we got to get that king over in a hurry. Maybe white. No, white's not going to make it. See, white doesn't make it. And maybe on the other line, black could have just not pushed e4 and just sent the king in anyway. So white cannot trade rooks. As I said, it would come up a couple times, and as I said earlier, the remarkable thing that comes up, this is the fact that black got his pawns running on the queen side too. So now here, king b3, taking advantage of that move a3. Without a3, that move never would have been possible. So, and the white king is horribly out of play. Now just a matter of sending the rook in to get behind the pawns, and white desperately gets his king closer, but too little too late. Now black has won a pawn, and a3 and c3 are both weak, so white tries to generate some counterplay, and black grabs that pawn, and now it's just finding a way to win this. And there's a good chance, I didn't look it up, there's a good chance that this position or something similar to it is in the anthologies. I use Rook and Pawn Innings, I think by Smyslov and Averbach, part of the Averbach series. I didn't look it up because I can tell black is winning this position now, and it even simplifies in a minute or two. Now, according to my course, the way I say the best time to study endings in turn-based games is while you're playing them. Then you can consult the books and look up and find the technique if you're not sure, rather than spending days and months analyzing an ending and then never seeing it come up in play. Currently, the chess.com rules are a little ambiguous. They don't specifically prohibit endgame books. They kind of say you can use opening books, and then one of the administrators has said, well, since they only say opening books, can't use endgame books, which doesn't make any sense. Every correspondence organization going back to antiquity allows you to consult the books, so we're just waiting a ruling on it. There's no logical reason to prohibit them, and then it's not enforceable. But it's a good way to learn endings is when you're playing them, and then on an over-the-board game you look them up after you play them. That's all outlined in my video lesson 1. Okay, so black just follows through with careful technique. Even if you don't have access to a book, you just play these out, spend some time, work out the variations, and really there's no defense. White has no defense here, c4, and now we pin the pawn, and get it, and essentially the white king is too far away to do any damage here. Black has one move, that's king b3. Anything else is going to allow a draw, unless you move the king backward and lose your rook, but that shouldn't happen. But king b3, and I'm sure this is in the books, and black is winning because there's no way to stop that pawn, and we'll just see the final moves here. Black just has to put up with a few nuisance checks, but then he gets out of it. Now king up, and at this point there's essentially no defense. White plays rook h8, and then black just makes a queen, and white resign because after check, You win the queen, but you're down a rook. You're going to get mated. What else can, instead of rook a1, let's see, or rook h8 rather, what else can white try? Well, black's threatening to queen the pawn. So the only other move to stop the pawn from queening is to bring the rook here. Now, what's the proper technique here? Well, there's probably a lot of ways. Playing the rook down here will just transpose into something we were just in. We can go threaten. We can go threaten to make the pawn a queen right now. So that allows a check. Okay, now how do we step out of this? Let's see. Let's see. I don't know. Let's see. So I got to solve these. I don't have my book in front of me. I'm not going to consult it. If we go back, he just repeats the positions. So let's see. We can always try this maneuver. Now, I've seen this maneuver before. Let's bring the king closer. It's not working. Back this up. I know King G. I know King G. B2 wins. It's just a. But let's look at this again. Let's see, because there's one thing I wanted to show. You try to escape. Oh yeah, this works. You try to escape the checks. Then he goes and threatens a mate. Okay, you can't make the queen, but black has this check, driving the king out, and then you make the queen. And game, set, match. I think that's the most direct way. Maybe my king up was a little premature. So just repeat the position. White has to check, or the pawn queens. White has to check, or the pawn queens. And the only thing White can do here is go threaten a mate of his own. But the kings are in opposition, and it's black to move. He just checks. You know, clearly it would be a mistake to make a queen because White wins. Whoops! Be careful. And I've seen things like that happen, believe it or not. So anyway, just a remarkable game by White. Black clearly, remarkable game by Black. I always mix Black and White up. I just can't get them straight. Anyway, picking up small advantages, small little things. Ran his kingside attack with his pawns. Didn't go anywhere. Used his rooks to drive the king over to the side of the board. And then White created a weakness on his pawns on the queen side, and Black sent the king into the heart of him and won the game. So, except for the little, maybe let's just look at it one more time. I was talking about that one move where I thought queen c7 wasn't the best, and I was talking about knight b6. What else can White do here? Well, he doesn't have to take on d6 and develop the black queen. He could just play here with his bishop b3. And basically both sides are saying, take my bishop so my piece can get developed. If black takes it, the white knight gets developed on f4. If black plays on bishop takes f4. If white takes, the black queen gets developed. So sometimes you got to play Mexican standoff and say, you take. No, you take. You take. Okay, so logically you would say that black would probably develop a piece. Well, white should do the same thing and develop a piece. Okay. Now, does black still want a castle queenside? Well, if he does, he's going to have to spend the tempo. If he wants, he's going to have to play queen c7. But actually, he has a new move here that I didn't even take into consideration yet. Knight d5. That's one advantage of putting the knight over on b6. So now white pretty much has to take or put the bishop on g5, and then black's achieved his aim. He's got his queen developed. So how can white prevent that? Okay, let's see. Bishop b3. He could try c4. That has a point to it. You want to play c5 and win a piece. So it also gives a backward, kind of a backward pawn, we call it. But there's also some potential pawn breaks on d5 at the right time. Moving the pawn to c4 shuts this bishop in, although it really wasn't going anywhere. But yeah, that pawn could get in the way in the ending. Black might do well with c5 here. Black, I don't know, can white play d5? Probably not. I think although the black king's a little exposed. Now this should be fine for black. So c5 is a good answer to c4. The point is that if you take, we're going to keep the dark squared bishop, and there's that bishop kind of behind that pawn. It's not doing him much good. And if white's looking for draw, trade the queens, swing a rook over. Now here, black should probably not castle. His king's quite safe there. And black to me looks a little bit better. His king's closer to the center. Both his bishops have a little more mobility in the position. It's white to play. What can he do? Bishop here. Yeah, fine. Let him. Let's just go attack it. And if you take my rook, I might take with the king and drive your bishop out. And then maybe get my king up to c6. A lot of interesting ways to play this. But essentially the game's about even. But it looks like black has a little better coordination of his pieces, a little more mobility. But that concludes this video. Wonderful game by black. I'm impressed, and you knew what to do. And sometimes, when you think a game's a draw, you get careless. And clearly, white kept giving it an inch here and an inch there, and that a3 just did him in. So I thank you for your time, and we'll be back soon with another video in this series. Take care. Thanks.